the silent dreams.
Close your eyes, take a breath in slow, full, unhurried, and let it go. You are not required to be anywhere tonight. You are not needed, not expected, not late for anything. The world outside this moment is quiet and still and very far away. Take another breath. Feel the weight of your body, the heaviness of your limbs, the way the bed holds you, the warmth that settles over you like something earned. You have carried yourself through this day. You have done enough. And now gently, gradually, you are setting all of it down. Breathe in and out. There is a place I want to take you tonight. A place where the fog comes down from the moor and turns the lantern light into something soft and circular and contained. A place where the ground is wet and the air is cold, and the silence is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat between one step and the next. We are going to Thornfield. The fog arrives before you do. You notice it first as a thickening of the dark, not the clean, crisp darkness of a clear November night, with its hard stars and sharp outlines, but something softer and more total. The kind of dark that has texture to it. The kind that presses gently against the skin. The road up from the village has been familiar until now. You know the bend by the old ash tree, the place where the wall dips before the gate, the soft hollow in the lane where the water collects in wet weather. But the fog has unmade the familiar and in its place has left a world reduced to what the lantern can hold. A circle of amber light perhaps 10 feet across and beyond it nothing. Not threatening, not alarming, just reduced, simplified. The world made manageable by being made small. Above, somewhere, the moor. The long open back of the hill that faces northeast and catches every weather first, the rain, the wind, the frost, and now this. A fog that came down in the early evening without announcement, settling into the valley from the high ground the way cold water settles into a low vessel. Patient, complete. Below somewhere the village. Wychford with its lamp post and its church tower and its dispensary window, all of it swallowed tonight, gone as completely as if it had never been. You are on the hill road. You are climbing, and ahead, barely visible, a cottage window, amber as an ember, set into the hillside like something left there on purpose, a marker, a guide. Smoke from the chimney, absorbed immediately by the fog, contributing its small warmth to the cold air and disappearing. The keeper's cottage. Arthur is home. Is a low building, as most buildings on this hillside are 2 rooms wide, 1 story and a sleeping loft, built from the same gray limestone as the walls that divide the fields below. It sits in a shallow bowl in the hillside that offers some shelter from the northeast, and the garden in front of it, if garden is the word for what Arthur keeps. A few yards of trampled earth, a water butt, a woodpile under a slate overhang, is enclosed by a low wall with a gate that hangs slightly off its hinge and has hung that way for 6 years. Arthur is aware of the gate. He will see to it in spring. He has been saying this since the spring before last and the spring before that. The gate continues to hang, and the world continues to turn, and no particular harm has come of it. Inside the cottage, the fire in the range is well established, built up before dark with the heavy oak logs that burn slowly and hold their heat, the kind of fire that will still be giving warmth at 3 in the morning without any further attention. The cottage smells of wood smoke and gun oil, and the dried mud that never quite leaves the flagstone floor regardless of how often it is swept, and of the dog, Bracken, a brown Labrador of 7 years, who is lying in her customary place before the fire with her chin on her paws and one eye half open. Arthur stands in the center of the room. He is 58 years old, of middle height, with the particular build of a man who has spent 30 years walking hillsides in all weathers, not heavy, not lean, but settled into himself in a way that suggests the body has made its accommodations with its life, and found the arrangement satisfactory. His face is weathered to a color that is neither tan nor red but some compound of both, broken by deep lines at the corners of his eyes and along his forehead, carved there by decades of squinting into wind. His hair is dark still, more dark than gray, which surprises people who know his age. He is looking at the window. The fog presses against it from outside, turning the glass into a white blank, opaque and featureless. He can see nothing beyond it. This does not trouble him. He knows this hill the way he knows the weight of his own coat, the way he knows the sound of a woodcock rising from cover, the way he knows which of the dry stone walls will hold and which are leaning toward their season of repair. He has walked this ground in fog before. He will walk it again tonight. He has one more round to make. He reaches for his coat. Arthur dresses for the round with the efficiency of long practice, each item in its order, each action the same as it was the night before and the night before that. The coat first, a heavy canvas game coat, waxed olive green, its pockets worn soft from decades of use. He shrugs it on and settles it at the shoulders with a small, familiar movement, like a man settling into himself. The coat has been with him for 22 years. He bought it from a traveling supplier at the Bakewell market and has never found reason to replace it and does not intend to. Then the boots already on, already laced. He has not been without boots since 5 in the morning, but he checks the laces briefly and makes a small adjustment to the right. The left boot has a slight looseness in the eyelet that he has been meaning to have a cobbler look at in Ashbourne and has been meaning to for 2 months. He is a man of deferred small repairs. The gate, the eyelet, the crack in the outhouse wall, they will all be attended to, in the fullness of time. He takes the lantern from its hook by the door, a brass-bodied oil lantern, recently trimmed, the wick set for maximum steadiness rather than maximum brightness. He has learned over the years that in fog, brightness is not what you need. Brightness creates a wall at the edge of its own light, a white opacity that the eye cannot penetrate. Steadiness is what you need. A reliable, consistent light that you can orient yourself by without demanding that it show you what it cannot. His stick, a hazel staff with a brass ferrule at the base, shoulder height, worn smooth at the grip, is propped beside the door. He picks it up. Bracken lifts her head from the flags and watches him. "You stay," Arthur says. It is not a question. It is not quite a command either. It is a statement of fact offered to a dog who understands both the statement and the reason for it. Bracken lays her head back down. Her tail moves once briefly against the floor. Arthur opens the door. The fog enters immediately, not a rush of it, just a presence, a cool, damp thickening of the air just inside the threshold. He steps through it and pulls the door closed behind him. The gate protests as always, its off-hinge voice a familiar complaint he no longer hears as complaint but as greeting. He raises the lantern. The fog is complete, a thorough, well-established fog, the kind that has settled in for the night and intends to still be here in the morning. Not a thin fog through which shapes are half visible, but the real article. A fog that has its own presence, its own quality of light, its own silence that is different from ordinary silence, the way wool is different from cotton. He takes the first step onto the path. The path beaten earth, worn by his own passage over 30 years, following the line of least resistance up the field to the stile at the top, is invisible beyond the lantern's circle, but his feet know it. They find the familiar fall of it, the slight camber to the right where the drainage runs, the place where the path widens at the old gatepost, the depression before the stile where the ground holds water. He walks. The sound of his boots on the damp earth is a soft, patient sound. Not the sharp impact of boot on dry ground, but a quieter thing, a compression, a release. He walked this path this morning in the dark before dawn with Bracken at his heel and a light frost on the grass and the stars still showing. He will walk it again in the morning. He walks it twice a day, every season. Some paths walked long enough become part of you. He is not a man who thinks in these terms exactly. He is not given to reflection of the literary kind, but he knows this path. And he knows that knowing this path is not something he learned from being told about it or shown on a map, but from the simple accumulation of walking, repeated until the path and the walker are no longer separate things. He reaches the stile. He crosses it in 3 careful movements: right foot up, swing, left foot over, with a deliberateness that his knees have insisted on for the past 5 years. He does not resent this. The knees have carried him up and down this hill for 3 decades and are entitled to an opinion. He descends the 2 stone steps on the far side and continues up. Above the second field, the enclosed land ends and the open moor begins. There is no dramatic announcement, no fence, no wall, only the point where the cropped grass of the pasture gives way to the longer, coarser growth of the moor proper. Heather mostly, not in flower now, its season long past, reduced to the dense woody stems and small leathery leaves that it presents to the winter, dark and springy underfoot. Bilberry between the clumps, its leaves gone red with the cold. Coarse grasses filling the gaps, bleached pale by autumn. Arthur knows every inch of this ground. He knows where the drainage channels run, dug by hand, decades before he came, by men whose names are in no record he has ever found. He knows which areas turn boggy in wet weather and must be skirted. He knows the flat stone near the highest point of his beat that the grouse use as a lookout post in dry weather, and the cluster of rocks 20 yards east where the stoats have denned 3 winters running. Tonight, in the fog, he navigates by knowledge rather than sight. The lantern is useful. It lights the ground immediately before him, showing the texture of the heather, the small depressions and rises that require attention at this hour. But it does not show him where he is in any larger sense. For that he relies on other information: the ground underfoot, the slope of it steeper here to the left, easing to the right, the slight change in the feel of the heather at his boots, denser here, where it is older and more established, more open here where the drainage is better, the sound of his own breathing, the sound of the night around him, which is, tonight, almost nothing. The fog has dampened sound as thoroughly as it has dampened sight. There are no birds calling, no wind in the heather, no distant bark of a fox, only the soft percussion of his own boots and the very faint sound of his own blood if he stops and listens. He stops and listens. The silence of the moor in fog is not the absence of sound, but a different category of sound altogether, a kind of audible stillness, a quality of hush that has its own texture, its own weight. He has stood in this silence many times. He does not tire of it. After a long moment, he continues. The wood that crowns the highest part of the Thornfield beat is known simply as Top Wood, not a poetic name, not a historical one, just the accurate statement of a fact that anyone standing in the valley can verify for themselves. It covers perhaps 12 acres, sessile oak mostly, with birch at the edges and a scattering of rowan whose berries are long since stripped by the fieldfares that move through in October. Arthur enters it from the south edge, where the trees are widest spaced and the ground is clearest. Inside the wood, the fog behaves differently. In the open moor, the fog is everywhere equally, a democratic blankness, uniform in all directions. In the wood, it collects between the trunks and hangs in layers, thicker here where the branches interlock overhead, thinner there where a gap in the canopy allows a slight movement of air. The lantern light catches it differently too, not the flat white of the open fog but something more complex, showing the fog's internal structure, its movement, its slight variations of density. He walks the wood's inner path, a path that exists here because he made it, because he has walked it twice daily for 30 years, and the ground has accommodated him, as ground accommodates persistence. The trees on either side of the path are dark pillars in the lantern light. their bark glistening with condensation, their lower branches hung with water droplets that catch the light and hold it for a moment before releasing it. He stops at the old oak. It is not the oldest tree in the wood, but it is the largest, a sessile oak of perhaps 250 years, its trunk too wide to reach around, its lower limbs spreading in great horizontal arcs that have, over the centuries, gradually descended toward the ground under their own weight until the outermost ones touch the earth like the fingers of an open hand. He has sheltered under this tree in downpours. He has eaten his lunch on the flat stone at its base more times than he can number. He holds the lantern up. The oak's bark catches the light in 1,000 small irregularities, furrows and ridges and patches of moss and lichen, and the small hollows that the lesser spotted woodpecker uses in its season. The bark of an old oak, seen by lantern light at close range, is a world unto itself. He has looked at it many times. He looks at it now for a long moment. Then he continues. The far edge of the wood, the north edge, marks the boundary of the Thornfield estate. Beyond the wall there, the land belongs to a farmer named Goodall who runs sheep on the high pasture and has never, in Arthur's experience, given him any occasion for concern. He is a decent man, Goodall. He nods when they pass on the lane. That is enough. Arthur reaches the north wall. He sets the lantern on the top stone. The wall is his frontier. Dry stone, built by hands he will never know, repaired by his own hands many times over many years. He knows every section of it, knows where it stands solid and where it requires watching, knows the place near the east corner where the rabbits have been undermining the foundation, and which he has shored up twice this autumn, and will shore up again in the new year. He rests his stick against the wall and leans beside it. The fog on this side of the wall is, if anything, thicker than on the south side. The ground drops away steeply to the north after the wall, and the fog lies in the hollow beyond like water in a bowl, dense, settled, absolute. He cannot see more than 2 feet beyond the wall. There is nothing there but fog, and behind the fog the patient darkness of a November night. He does not feel the need to see further. He takes out his pipe. He does not smoke it often on the evening round, perhaps once a week, when the weather and the mood converge. Tonight is such a convergence. He fills the bowl from the pouch in his left breast pocket, a deliberate action, done by touch and long familiarity in the insufficient lantern light. The tobacco is a dark, loose-cut Virginia that he buys from the tobacconist in Ashbourne, 3 months' supply at a time. He lights it from the lantern flame, a small, sheltered ceremony. The first pull. The tobacco catches and settles into its burn, and the smoke rises into the fog and vanishes, and for a moment the cold November air carries a warm, dark sweetness that is entirely different from everything else on this hillside. He leans against the wall. He looks at the fog. He is not thinking about anything in particular. This is one of the things he values about the evening round. It is one of the few times in his day when the mind is not required to produce anything. Not a plan, not a solution, not a response. The round requires his attention in a physical sense, his feet, his eyes, his ears, but it does not require the kind of effortful thinking that he associates with the management of the estate's documentation, which he finds onerous, or with the occasional need to deal with poachers, which he finds unpleasant in a different way. Out here in the fog and the dark, he is simply present. He smokes. He listens. Somewhere below, far below, at the valley bottom, he thinks he can hear the beck. Not clearly. The fog dampens it, turns it from a sound into an impression of a sound. But it is there. He has been hearing that beck his whole tenure on this hill, and his ear has learned to find it even when it is barely present. He finishes the pipe, taps the bowl against the wall gently, carefully, the embers falling onto the wet stone and going cold immediately, and puts it away. He picks up the lantern. He picks up his stick. He begins the descent. The descent is different from the ascent in every material way. Going up, the body leans forward into the hill and the effort is distributed across the whole of the back and the thighs. The knees are not particularly involved. Going down, the weight of the body becomes a thing to be managed, each step a small negotiation, the knee absorbing what the downward momentum delivers. Arthur descended this hill yesterday, and the day before. And the day before that. His knees know the terms of the negotiation and have arrived at a working arrangement. He moves slowly. There is no reason to move otherwise. The fog has the night in hand, and the night is not going anywhere, and he is not going anywhere except down to the cottage and the fire and the chair by the range. These things will all be there when he arrives. They have always been there. He crosses the moor in reverse, the heather under his boots, the bilberry, the coarse grasses, the channels of drainage passing to his left and right. He navigates by the ground's memory of his passage, following the slight parting of the heather that 30 years of walking have made, finding the path the way water finds its channel, not by thinking, but by the accumulated tendency of things. The second field arrives, the familiar change in ground, the close-cropped grass of the enclosed pasture, the slight lessening of the heather's resistance underfoot. The stile. He crosses it in the same 3 movements, the same deliberateness at the knee. The first field. The cottage window coming into view as a faint amber blur in the fog, not a shape so much as a warm suggestion, a heat signature, a promise. The gate. Its familiar complaint. He is home. The warmth of the cottage comes at him in layers as he pushes the door open. First, a change in the quality of the air, the sharp November damp giving way to something with depth to it, something that has been accumulating all evening. Wood smoke and stone heat, and the particular compound of all the small warmths that make up the interior of a lived-in space. Second, the sound of the fire, a low, steady conversation between flame and wood, the occasional soft collapse of ash, the tick of the iron range as it expands with heat. Third, Bracken. She has not moved from her place before the fire, but her tail is moving, the full-length sweeping movement of her serious greeting, reserved for returns from the long round. Arthur closes the door. He hangs the lantern back on its hook. He hangs his coat on the peg beside the door, a laborious process, given that the wax canvas is damp on the outside and requires a particular draping over the peg that allows the water to run off rather than accumulate. He does it correctly. He always does it correctly. The boots he leaves by the door, on the mat he put there for exactly this purpose 30 years ago and has replaced 4 times since. He crosses the floor in his stockinged feet. Bracken's tale describes its arc. He settles into the chair by the range. The chair is wooden, a Windsor back, old, its joints slightly loose in the way that old chairs go loose over long years of use, developing a small give that is not quite structural failure but is something comfortable, something that accommodates the body's various positions rather than insisting on a single one. He has had this chair since the first year he came. He brought it with him from his mother's house, strapped to the cart along with the rest of his modest inventory of things, and it has sat in this position, 2 feet from the range on the right side, angled slightly toward the fire for 32 years. He settles into it, the give of the joints beneath him, the particular disposition of the seat and back that has, over 3 decades, adjusted itself to his particular shape. There is a version of this chair that exists only in relation to him, a ghost of all his evenings compressed into wood. Bracken raises herself from her place on the flags, walks 3 steps to his side, and lowers herself again against his feet. Her warmth comes through his stockings immediately, the dense, reliable warmth of a dog who has been lying by a fire all evening. He rests his hands on his thighs. He looks at the fire. The range is a good range, a Thornfield manor cast-off from 15 years ago, delivered by the estate's cart when the manor kitchen was refitted with a newer model. It is wider than what he would have chosen for himself, wider than strictly necessary for one man and a dog, but he has come to appreciate the width of it in winter. More grate, more fire, more of this quality of heat that reaches into the room rather than merely occupying the wall. The fire has been doing its work all evening. The room is warm in the complete way that a small room can be warm, not the pleasant warmth of a briefly heated space, but the saturated warmth of a space that has been warmed for hours, where every surface has taken on some portion of the heat and is now returning it slowly, gently from all directions. He breathes in. The fire in the range is visible through the small barred window in the front of the cast iron, a rectangle of orange and amber, and at the center, the near white of the hottest burning. The logs he put on at 7 o'clock, heavy oak, split to his hand's width, dry from the woodpile under the slate overhang, have given most of themselves by now. They are embers mostly, with one log still showing its original shape but reduced, lighter, more porous, its grain visible now that the outer substance has burned away. He watches it. He is not thinking about it. He is watching it the way the fire watches him, without agenda, without analysis, with a simple mutual regard. This is one of the things a fire is good for. It gives the eyes somewhere to rest without requiring the mind to follow. His mind tonight is quiet. The round is done. The wood is quiet. He heard nothing on the boundary that required attention, no disturbance in the top wood, no sign of anything that ought not to be there. The estate is in good order. He will write this in his keeper's book in the morning, as he does every morning. Date, weather, round completed, notes. Tonight's notes will be brief. Fog. All quiet, all quiet. He can hear the fog against the cottage window, or rather, he can hear what the fog prevents. In clear weather, this window receives the sounds of the hill, the wind in the heather, the call of owls, the distant complaint of sheep on Goodall's land. Tonight there is none of this. The fog has taken all of it, returned a silence that is even more complete than the usual night silence of the cottage. All quiet. He shifts slightly in the chair, the give of it accommodating, as always, and lets his head rest against the back. Bracken's warmth is steady against his feet. The fire speaks quietly to itself. Came here at 26. He had done a year as underkeeper on an estate in Staffordshire, where he learned the work from a man named Halliwell, who believed in doing a thing correctly or not doing it at all, and who communicated this belief not through speech, but through the quality of his own example. Arthur absorbed the lesson thoroughly. He came to Thornfield in November, the same month, the same fog. He remembers standing on the hill road on his first evening walk, lantern in hand, not yet knowing the path, feeling the ground for its intentions the way you feel a new tool for its balance. He did not know then that this would be his ground for more than 30 years. He was not thinking in those terms. He was simply walking. Step by step, the hill gave itself up to him, not quickly. Not all at once, but over weeks and months and seasons and years, the ground under his feet became the ground he knew, and the wood on the hilltop became the wood he tended, and the walls became the walls he repaired, and the animals, the grouse, the partridge, the pheasant, the hare, the fox at the edge of the wood, the stoats in their den of rocks became, in some sense, his. Not owned. He would not say owned, but known, cared for. Watched over with the kind of attention that, in its constancy and its patience, becomes something not entirely unlike love. He thinks of the old oak, 250 years, give or take. It was growing there when the men who built these walls were alive. It will be growing there, barring accident or disease, when Arthur's name is forgotten by everyone living. There is something in this that he finds not diminishing but settling. The hill was here before him. The hill will be here after him. His 32 years are a small but genuine part of its long life, the way a season is a small but genuine part of a year. He has done the work. He has done it correctly. That, he thinks, is enough. The small table beside the chair, a pine table, scarred, too small for any purpose but this one, there is a book. It is not a large book, roughly 8 inches by 5, with a dark green cloth cover and a ribbon marker that Arthur has used in the same faded red since the book was new, 4 years ago. The Thornfield Estate Game Book Vol. VII he has written on the front end paper in his plain, functional hand. Below it, a moss head Gamekeeper, and below that commenced Nov. 1883. He does not open it tonight. He opened it this morning, as he does every morning, and wrote his entry for the previous day. He will open it tomorrow morning and write the entry for today. But in the evenings, the book sits on the table as a kind of presence rather than a task, the record of his work, the account of the hill, the daily accumulation of what he has seen and done. In its 6 predecessors, stacked in the chest under the window, there are 32 years of mornings. 32 years of weather observations, of bird counts, of notes on the condition of the estate's various parcels. The individual records of each breeding season, how many broods, how many chicks, how many survive to August. The winters with their particular severities. The springs with their arrivals and returns. He has never read them back. He does not feel the need. They are not a document to be read but a practice to be maintained. The act of writing each morning's entry is itself the point. The keeping of the record is the record. He knows men who keep journals of their private lives, who write down what they felt, what they thought, what they hoped and feared. He does not do this and does not feel the absence of it. The game book is his journal. The hill is his thought. The round is his feeling. The record of all 3, accumulated over 32 years in 7 green cloth volumes, is his life, as closely as any written thing can represent a life. He is content with that. He is content in general with what his life has turned out to be. Outside the cottage, the fog continues. It is not the fog of dramatic literature, not threatening, not sinister, not the conveyance of omens. It is simply the weather of the high valley on a November night. It will be here in the morning, probably thinner perhaps, lifting off the low ground by mid-morning if the temperature drops as expected, burning off the upper moor by early afternoon. He knows this fog. He has known it 40 times in November alone. He knows the way it moves and the way it settles and the way it eventually lifts reluctantly, as though it would rather stay but cannot justify the expense of the effort. Through the cottage window, the small square of glass on the north-facing wall, the one that shows the hill when there is hill to show, there is only the fog's blankness. White-gray, featureless, pressed against the glass as though curious about what is inside. What is inside is warmth. What is inside is a man and his dog both approaching sleep. Bracken's breathing has deepened. He can hear it from where he sits, that slow, regular respiration of a dog in the early stages of sleep, the exhalation slightly longer than the inhalation, the whole cycle unhurried and deep. She has earned it. She ran the East Fields with him this morning, and she was with him for the afternoon check of the release pens, and she has been still and warm on the flags for the past 5 hours. She sleeps easily. She always has. Arthur watches the fog through the window for a moment longer. Then he closes his eyes. There is a round that Arthur does not speak of, because it is not the kind of round that goes in the keeper's book. It happens here, in the chair, in the last minutes before sleep. He walks the hill in his mind. Not systematically, not with the focused attention of the actual round, but in the loose, drifting way of a mind that is nearly sleep, following the ground's contours without urgency, stopping where it stops, noticing what it notices. The top wood. The oak's bark in lantern light, its 1,000 small valleys, the moss in the deeper furrows, the lichen in its flat gray-green patches, the drip of condensation from the lowest branch. The way the fog lay between the trunks in layers, thicker and thinner, showing its own internal geography. The boundary wall, the tobacco smoke rising and vanishing. The invisible beck heard rather than seen, its voice reduced to an impression, a vibration in the cold air. The heather, wet at the stem, springy underfoot, its winter color a rich dark auburn where the lantern touched it, fading to near black where it didn't. The whole hill held in the mind like water held in two cupped hands, present, complete, briefly contained. And now slowly the hands open. The water finds its way out between the fingers, following the grade of the palms, dropping in small drops that fall without sound into a darkness that is warm and complete and requires nothing. The hill is outside. The fog is outside. The fire is here. Bracken breathes. Arthur breathes. The cottage holds them both, the old stone walls, the slate roof, the small window with the fog against it, the door on its latch, the range with its settled fire, holds them the way the valley holds the village, the way the hill holds the wood, the way the night holds everything it is given. Gently, without effort, as a matter of long practice, the chair receives him fully now. His weight has settled into it, not the upright attention of a man who is thinking, not the slight forward inclination of a man who is watching, but the complete symmetrical weight of a man who is letting go. His hands are still on his thighs. His feet are warm where bracken lies against them. The fire speaks quietly. The range ticks its slow, thermal language. Outside the fog. Above the fog somewhere the moor. The heather in its winter state, enduring, patient, accumulating what the season offers without complaint. The top wood, its oaks dripping in the dark, their roots deep in the limestone, their 250-year habit of existence continuing without interruption. The boundary wall, its stones settled into their dry, interlocking arrangement, holding the line between one piece of ground and another, as they have held it since before any man living was born. And the valley below. The valley that holds all of this, the wood and the moor and the walls and the cottage and the village below, with its lamp post and its church and its dispensary window, holds all of it the way a hand holds a stone, not tightly, not possessively, but with the simple, sufficient grip of something that knows what it is holding and is not afraid of holding it. You are in the valley. You have always been in the valley tonight. And the valley is lowering you now gently as it lowers everything down through the warm dark, down through the level where thought lives, down through the level where feeling lives, into something beneath both of them. Something quieter, something that has always been there waiting. The level where the body knows without being told that it is safe, that the hill is quiet, that the wood is still. That the fog has taken the world's edges gently and wrapped them in something soft, and the wrapped world is resting and you are resting with it, and there is nothing required. Nothing at all. The fire breathes. Bracken breathes. Arthur breathes, and you breathe, slow, deep, down, well. Thornfield is still here. The fog will lift in the morning. It always does.